Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. I'm here from a random hotel in Indiana. I just left meeting a bunch of awesome people yesterday, meeting some more cool people today, and then of course tomorrow, Saturday, is the meetup in Chicago, which I'm still waiting for Steve to tell me where. So in Chicago, late afternoon, early evening, video game related place with booze. We'll figure it out. There's only a handful, but also I forgot my capture card. So I have to use the integrated webcam in my laptop as opposed to my camera. So while the audio should be the same as usual, the video is going to be terrible this week. Very sorry about that, but everything else should be the same, so let's jump right in. All right, let's start with the newest comments this week from the bottom of the list. Phil Welker said he recalls someone saying controller extension cables add lag. No, definitely not in a way that would affect gameplay. In order for enough lag to be introduced by distance of cable, then you would have to have like a mile long, and even then it would be negligible. Most game consoles, most retro game consoles pull the controller port once per frame every 16.7 or 16-ish milliseconds. So you would have to add on a long distance in order to make that, to affect that at all. So that's never something I would worry about. However, build quality of the extension cable is a problem. So I ordered a bunch for all of my different consoles. Most work perfect. I'm very happy with them. But the SNES one that I ordered a few years ago didn't work with the Super Scope adapter because not all of the pins were populated. And then there's a Saturn adapter I have that you have to plug it in and then kind of pull it out a little bit for it to work. So these are all mechanical things. So I guess theoretically you would want, a good quality cable soldered directly to the board that could be 50 feet long and still be okay. But, most people don't want to destroy their original controllers like that. So you would really just have to use these extension cables and find decent enough ones that work. But I would never worry about it adding lag because it's not going to add lag in a perceivable way, only mechanical issues. Next are a few things from Alair. I'm trying to get your name right. I'm so sorry. You even sent me the Google pronunciation thing, and I'm just terrible at it. I'll keep trying, though. Please be patient. Two things. First, he was able to update his Carby from Insurrection using a cheap Xilinx programmer, as opposed to like the really expensive one that Steve from HD Retrovision had, or the kind of expensive one that the Insurrection uses. And that's good to know. He said it's pretty effortless using a VirtualBox image on a Mac. So even though it was Windows only, it wasn't a big deal. And that's great info because I'm a big fan of the Carbys and they're super easy to take apart and update. So I'll make sure to repost the link to the programmer for people that need it because that's cool. I'm really glad that, that there's an easy solution for that. And for the actual question, is it worth it to RGB mod a consumer grade TV that already has component? So I gotta say, this is going to be a matter of skill, preference, and OCD, I guess. In the perfect world that the TV is in excellent shape, you might really not notice a difference. I think these RGB mods are really for things like, there's a lot of amazing TVs out there. There's one type of Sony with like the black back, where if you're looking at the side, like it starts out and just drops straight down, and then you see the tube behind it. Those are either RF only or RF and composite, and they're great quality tubes. So those are just the perfect candidates for RGB mods because you get great quality out of them, and previously you wouldn't have any options. I think the only things that you'll get with the component video over component video inputs, you'll skip all of the processing. So if bad capacitor or something on the board, it just bypasses that and goes directly to the on-screen display. And also, with analog video, the more components you have between the source and the target, the signal's always going to go down in quality. It's just a matter of, is it noticeable? So the test Jose Cruz and I did on that Sony with all inputs, the RGB input did look better, but we didn't touch the original board. So probably by springtime, I got a couple other huge videos I got to work on that are taking up all the time. So once those are done, I'm going to go back and take the really nice consumer-grade 32-inch JVC TV that I got that does have component inputs, and I'm going to go the extra mile on that one. So I'll do the before video, take out the board, figure out what I need to do to build a really good RGB mod circuit. But then I'm also going to recap the whole thing, which is a giant pain, and make sure to refurbish the TD as is. So that way when I do the RGB mod, it could be a much more fair comparison, and then we'll all see. I think my guess would be that people who do this every day, like myself, Jose, the people that do the comparison videos, like My Life in Gaming, Digital Foundry, will probably be able to tell the difference just by looking at it. Nobody else probably would. So, I could be wrong though. We'll see springtime. But I'll keep everybody updated, and I really hope to get more solid data on that, as well as a collection of which are the best TVs to do these mods on. Because already that one Sony that I described is awesome, and hopefully these JVCs would be good as well. David Lang asked if I knew where to find a tutorial on how to install the FU RGB board in the SSD-S3. So that's the Voltar RGB mod for the SSD-S3 board. And I think the best place for that would be to look on both Voltar and Mobius Strip Tech's Twitter page and just copy their installation. I think just the basis of it is that you remove all of the video line components on the SSD-S3. And then I would remove all of them because they're all in one area. It's easy to remove, and it just, there's no chance of anything being interfered with. And then solder to the same points that you see on their Twitter page. So overall, I mean, it's not a bad install. It's not as easy as like a SNES Mini RGB install, but it's not too terrible. And you don't need any kind of like desoldering equipment, especially because you're not replacing the parts. So you could be a little bit rough on them and not worry if you damage the components. So you don't want to damage the board, but if you heat up the resistor too much, the surface mount resistor, and pull it off with pliers, as long as you leave the board in good condition, it doesn't really matter what you do to the resistor because you're throwing it out anyway. The final question, when I complete the mod, do you know if I will lose composite video out of the SSD-S3 connector? I believe so, but I could be wrong on that, and to be honest with you, I never really pay attention to composite anymore. The only time that I do is for the Master System 2, because when you do the mod that replaces the RF jack with the Mini-DIN 9, the same one as the Genesis 2, I always like to use that because then you could just use a Genesis 2 composite video cable to get audio. But other than that, I usually just ignore it. So maybe check with Mobius or Voltar, but that's a good question. I probably should have known the answer to that. Chris Syme brought up the incident where Voltar tried to back up one of his save files using the Retron 5, and it saved it, but then deleted it off of the cartridge. Chris said that he owned a RetroFreak for a while and used it to dump and reload save files all the time. So I'll mention that to Zach. I think he's now distrustful of all those things. But yeah, I know this is going to sound like one of those elitist RGB people, but I would just stay away from the Retron 5. There's no reason to use it over an emulator because it is just an emulator. And things like save files, dumping your own carts can be used with better equipment anyway that you can get for cheaper. So thanks, Chris. I'll let Zach know. I think he and Artemio were figuring out a way to get it back, but yeah, I'll let him know for that. Maybe that'll help. Thank you. The Real Phoenix was chiming in about the 32X switchless mod that we were talking about last week. He said he got his working and tested and working, and it's based off of the old Akari one, the same person that did the SD to SNES. The tips that he had was you have to be careful on the configuration of the PIC when you program it because it could put the internal oscillator in a wrong state. And you could do things like accidentally have a horizontal scrolling on the screen and stuff like that if it's not programmed right. He's working on a switchless mod with a dual oscillator as well, so that you could have proper colors if you use composite or S-Video, but most of us use RGB, right? But yeah, so thank you very much to The Real Phoenix. I will put a video of that on, I was going to write a post on, or he put a video up, and I was going to write a post on that before I left, but I didn't have time, so I'll try and get to it before the next roundup. So thanks for the heads up, and for the person that was looking to do the 32X switchless mod, there you go. Diego had a couple of questions. First, he saw that there is a project for using light guns on LCD screens. There's two of them. The first one is one that hacks NES ROMs to be able to match the delay of a flat screen, and you need to use a generic, actually you have to use a crappier zapper for it, and it works great. I've tested it. I really enjoy it. I mean, obviously then you need a ROM cart or a way to play ROMs, but I like it. I think they did a great job on the games that work, and it's cheap and easy and fun. The other one is the LCD Zapper Light Gun Verter. I forgot what the new official name of it is, but it essentially uses a Wiimote so that all light gun games will work on a flat screen. No tweaking or messing around required, because it doesn't use the refresh rate of the screen the same way that other Zapper or light gun games do it. It uses it more like the Wiimote with targeting. And from the people that I've heard that got it said that it works great. So definitely pick that one up if that was what you were waiting to do across multiple consoles. Second question, do I know any low input lag 1080p screens that is bigger than 50 inches? No, and I don't know that you could even really get too many too many decent 1080p screens anymore. The LG and TCL 4Ks are very inexpensive in the US, and they're pretty low lag. If I forgot the model of the LG, but even the super cheap TCL ones have about 17 milliseconds of lag, and I think the LGs have like 14 milliseconds or less, maybe 13. So those are great choices, and I think the last time I saw the LG, there was like a holiday sale at Best Buy, and the 42-inch was $260. So it's a great price for it. The TV is all right. You can't really look at it from an angle. You have to be straight on. It's not the best video quality, but it's not bad, and it's low lag, and it's super cheap. So that's definitely what I would suggest. And the last question, it's what I would suggest on a budget. I'm sure there's more expensive options out there, but I haven't really been able to try them. Last question, he bought an 8BitDo 24 gigahertz controller that can be plugged in via micro USB, but also has the wireless system. Do I know of any device that could do wireless with those for the classic consoles? No. I believe that all of their classic console adapters only use Bluetooth, not the 2.4 gigahertz wireless, so it could only be used via whatever dongle it comes with, or any of the other 2.4 gigahertz controller stuff that they do. So I can't remember if the one for the classic consoles, so like NES or SNES Classic, those might be 2.4 gigahertz as well, but you'd have to check. So sorry, bad news on that one. Bad Reality had a couple questions. First, he said he recently watched My Life in Gaming's video on the GameCube and was stunned by the quality of the component cables through the OSSC line doubled to 960p. He said the video quality is more detailed than 480p, even through 480p through HDMI. Yeah, I mean, line doubling to 960p definitely gets you. It seems like it gets you more detail. Remember, it's only doubling; it's not rendering in the higher resolution, but it does look sharper. And also forget that My Life in Gaming upscales their videos to 4K. And that's not like a dig. I'm not saying it's cheating. It's just, in fact, it's the way it should be done these days for any kind of comparison videos up on YouTube. So you're really, in post-processing, slow processing, you're really going to see all of the detail that you may have missed if you're just watching it on your normal TV. So, yeah, I mean, I think they did a great job showing the differences for stuff like that. So it really depends. I mean, it depends on your setup, what equipment you already own. I kind of go into this with the upcoming Dreamcast video that should be out any moment now. I just have to correct the last few things, re-render and repost. But, analog to digital, 960p compatibility. If your TV is compatible with all of those, the OSSC and your 480p source, whether it's GameCube or Dreamcast, could be just a ridiculously good option. Some questions, though. Can 960p be fed into a D-series Sony BVM? I've never tried. It's a great question. And I probably should have tried. So I'll look into that. My only opinion on that, though, like I talked a little bit last week, was that once you start to get into high def on a BVM, you're pretty much just looking like a flat screen. And in my opinion, the only thing you're gaining is zero lag, assuming there's no processing in the chain or anything like that. So I'll check into it just because I'm curious as well. And if I forget, please remind me. But any kind of high-def gaming, I really think people would benefit from a flat screen. There's no crazy calibration issues. They're cheap and light and easy. I just talked about a $260 42-inch flat screen with less than a frame of lag, which means you might not even notice at all on games. Like even competitive gamers might not even notice that, depending on a lot of different things. So it's just my suggestion. And second, if 960p is used on a Wii, how good are the results? Same exact thing. So whether it's a virtual console game, whether it's a Game Boy game, or whether it's a Wii game, it all depends on, will your TV accept 960p well? And if it does, how does it process it? How does it look? I would think for anything retro, the best thing to do would be to run it in original 240p mode and then use the OSSC to go up to 5x. Because remember, 960p would be 240p times 4. So by using the 5x modes, you could even, yes, you do get, excuse me, a bit of the screen cut off, but in a lot of these old games, there was overscan anyway, so it doesn't matter. Cutting off the top and bottom a little bit, you would, in many cases on a CRT, have the overscan cut those off anyway. So, I mean this politely. I certainly don't mean this as a dig, but I would really not worry so much about 960p for anything other than 480p source content. So, I would never think about it. I don't even think about it for retro stuff, because anything before that, you have the 5x modes on the OSSC. For the Dreamcast and for I guess even PS2 technically, and for the GameCube, it really just matters, does your TV accept 960p and how well? And I show a little bit in the Dreamcast video that on my TV, what happens for Dreamcast is when you use it in the 1080p mode, so the DC HDMI has a mode that could take 960p, center it, and then put a black bar around it so that it is a true 1080p signal that looks good in all modes. When you do it that way, I actually think in many games, the way my TV, my LG OLED, scales 960p, fills the screen top to bottom, because it scales it to 4x, I like the way that it kind of combines the sharpness of an integer scale to 960p with the smoothness of a typical TV upscaling. So for things like retro stuff, I would not like that. But on the Dreamcast, so many of those games look modern anyway, that it really felt like I was playing a native HD Dreamcast game in many of those cases. So I would really just think about it for 480p stuff, and then see how your TV reacts to the different games and setups. Lastly, Justin Sison was following up about a problem that Nathan Kimball was having with the HD Retrovision cables. This is a weird one. So apparently in Mega Man X, the blackout would occur every time he entered and exited the stage select screen. Experience with both original cart and SD to SNES, and Justin listed out all of the different components he had, completely eliminating those as a potential part of the problem. So I'll ask Steve about that. I'll see him tomorrow. If you're in Chicago, you could come and ask him yourself as well, because that's pretty interesting. The other info is he said his cable was part of the very first batch, and I remember there were some weird little quirks that Steve had fixed in the batches since then, but I don't ever remember this, so I'll definitely ask him about it. And if I forget to respond, please hit me up or something. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Well, that's it for this week. Next week I'll be back home with my normal setup, so no more of this webcam crap. And also for anybody new to these Q&As, if you have any questions at all, please post wherever you found this video. I always disable the YouTube comments for these because this is really more of a supporter thing. So any questions at all, anything you're wondering, wherever you found this video, Patreon, Subscribe Star, or whatever, just post in those comments and I'll get to it the following week. Also, I don't have time to go back and check previous weeks, so if I missed your question or if you posted after I've already recorded the Q&A, please just repost in the current week and I promise I'll get to it. Thanks so much for your support, and I'll see you next time.